focus over the last week here on Brandon's Ward has obviously been about WrestleMania. So I did not get a chance to talk about Stefon Diggs as he is now out of Buffalo. He moves over to the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans are essentially voiding the last 3 years on his contract. This is a 1 year deal. If it does not work out in Houston with Diggs, CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, and crew, then he will become a free agent. Stefon Diggs had spent 4 years in Minnesota, most famous for the Case Keenum, the Minneapolis Miracle against the Saints in the divisional round. Then he moves on to Buffalo, where he had 4 incredible years. 3.5 specifically, obviously slowed down at the end of last year due to the offensive change, with Buffalo going from Ken Dorsey as OC to Joe Brady, really going through Dalton Kincaid at tight end and James Cook, the running back. Josh Allen doing a lot of the running as well. Diggs not getting as many targets, as many yards. And I think that it really fractured the relationship. And we saw it even the year prior, with Diggs, that home game in the divisional round when Buffalo got smacked in the cold and the snow on their home field by Joe Burrow and company. And Stephon Diggs is a little bit of a diva, just like his brother, the defensive back for the Cowboys, Trayvon. Stephon Diggs is obviously, a top seven, top eight, I would say, wide receiver in the NFL. I would not put him in the top five. I think you got guys like Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. I would even put up Marvin Harrison, who's obviously coming out of college, over him right now. I think Marvin Harrison's gonna walk in and be a day one GOAT in this league. And if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, in my opinion, you should be very excited. But Stefon Diggs is obviously a very talented wide receiver. When he's right and he's got the right quarterback, boy, can he make plays. And as good as the Houston Texans were last year, and as much as Tank Dell, who that offense really did change when Tank Dell went out at the end of last year, as much as Nico Collins and Noah Brown blossomed with Stroud, as much as CJ Stroud impressed us in his rookie year, they still did not have that number one go to target. Dylan Schultz, a very nice tight end. What they added Devin Singletary as a back was decent, but now you get the upgrades in Joe Mixon. I think Damian Pierce is still there also as a backup back. You add Stephon Diggs, and this Houston Texans offense is loaded. Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. There's a plethora of weapons that Nick Caserio has alluded to as franchise quarterback. And it does remind me a little bit of what the Philadelphia Eagles did with Jalen Hurts his second year. When they went out, they got A.J. Brown from a first round pick from the Tennessee Titans, which somehow Houston only had to give up a second round pick in next year's draft, essentially for Stefon Diggs, which to me is crazy. Buffalo to me pretty much gave him away. I think the Bills are thinking though this is a very deep wide receiver class. Obviously, they have Curtis Samuel right now, as I mentioned. They have Dalton Kincaid, they have Dawson Knox, they have James Cook. So it's not like they have nothing for Josh Allen. But we talked about this before, right? Patrick Mahomes is great, and he's making chicken salad out of chicken SH, essentially with the Kansas City wide receiver crew. Now, Rashid Rice, even though he's had his issues over the last couple of weeks, really came on last year as that second wide receiver next to Travis Kelsey, but they did not have a great receiving core, and they won back-to-back Super Bowls. And when you pay the quarterback this much money, and when Josh Allen plays like a Ben Roethlisberger, when he plays like a Cam Newton, 6'5", very strong, big arm, but can run people over like a linebacker. Um, I think you got to take advantage of this window. And the fact that he got paid that much and Buffalo only made it to one AFC championship game, they lost Gabe Davis as well. And they lost both of their starting safeties in Poyer and Hyde. So they're and Tre'Davious White as well. So Buffalo is rebuilding a lot. I thought they paid Von Miller way too much money. We all said it at the time. It's do you just I don't know, do you just take the dead cap in and release Von Miller and try to alleviate some of that cap space? I don't know. But Buffalo was hoping that in this very deep wide receiver class, they can hit on a receiver, which could change their outlook. But I'm telling you right now, they lost a lot of pieces on defense. So did the Miami Dolphins. And I really like what the New York Jets have done this offseason. getting Morgan Moses from Baltimore, getting Tyron Smith from Dallas. I think if they go out and they get another wide receiver or a tight end, if they get Brock Bowers, if they get Roma Dudze for Aaron Rodgers, I think this Jets team, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy with the losses that Buffalo has, Miami has, I think New England is still rebuilding. There's a lot of talk out there they could just go receiver free and not quarterback, which I think could be a mistake depending on who Washington takes at number two. But I think the Jets' outlook is looking up in that division. And I think Buffalo and Miami right now are looking down unless they start replacing some of that talent. And again, Josh Allen may be on a lone island here unless they get, a hit here in the draft with one of the receivers. And I'm assuming they're going to take two because they lost Gabe Davis as well. So as long as one of those two hit, Buffalo may be fine, but I don't think they're going to be as explosive as they were last year. And it's going to be a lot for the running game of James Cook and for the pass catching of Dalton Kincaid. On the other hand, when it comes to the Houston Texans, I said it going into the offseason. I thought there was going to be a little bit of a regression from Houston. I still like Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I don't know that the Calvin Ridley experiment necessarily worked out. I think, you got Christian Kirk, you got Zay Jones, you got Evan Ingram. They'll probably add another receiver in the draft. Travis Etienne is still there. I think they need to focus on offensive line, shoring that up. They need to focus on the defense. Get Trevor Lawrence healthy in Doug Peterson's system. I think Trevor Lawrence could have a bounce back year. And then you've got Indianapolis, who I think Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen are going to be absolute studs. And I had the Colts potentially winning the division this year until Houston went out and they got Joe Mixon and they got Stefon Diggs, adding to that wide receiver core. And I think the nice thing here is, D'Amico Ryan's the defensive head coach. They got their pass rusher in Will Anderson, and D'Amico Ryan's is getting the best out of his side of the ball. And I've always said, I talked about this with Buffalo Wild and Sean McDermott. You can win with a defensive coach, but you got to have a superstar OC. Joe Brady looked like a superstar OC last year. Buffalo started winning games. Bobby Slowick looks like a superstar OC for the Houston Texans. Give him full control and that Kyle Shanahan like scheme. I think it could be a big year for Diggs, CJ Stroud, and the Texans. And the Houston Texans, they may not only be playoff contenders, we'll have to see where the schedule comes out. But right now, I would rank Houston over Buffalo in the AFC hierarchy. Buffalo will probably still be playoff contenders and will be as long as they have Josh Allen at the quarterback position. Houston is now Super Bowl contenders, I think, based off their schedule. We'll see with Stefon Diggs. That's how much I do think a number one wide receiver can't change your offense when he is the only missing piece. But we just saw the Diggs and Josh Allen relationship sort of sputter. Diggs is a diva. Stroud's going to have to get him the ball. Will that play a worse effect on Houston over time? It potentially could, but it could also be a great marriage that could lead the Texans to the promised land. I thought it was a great deal for the Texans, and I thought Buffalo at least should have got a first, if not more back than a second round pick for one of the top 10 wide receivers in the sport. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.